The stars in the void flickered like distant, dying candles, their light reaching across space to touch the cold, empty corners of the galaxy. It was in this deep, forgotten region that a team of researchers embarked on a seemingly routine mission that would uncover a truth more staggering than they could ever imagine. A truth that had been buried, erased, and forgotten for centuries. Humanity never existed, or so the galaxy believed. For generations, across every corner of the known universe, humanity had been dismissed as a myth, fairy tale, a piece of ancient fiction woven into the histories of various species, dismissed as nothing more than a primitive story meant to explain the unexplained. Every galactic record, every myth, every belief, all pointed to one undeniable conclusion. Humans were nothing more than a figment of imagination. There was no evidence of their existence, no trace of their passing, just the lingering whispers of a people that had never been. Yet, when the Vigilant Horizon, a deep space research vessel, ventured into the uncharted debris field in a distant sector, they uncovered something far more dangerous than ancient artifacts or remnants of forgotten wars. They found evidence of humanity, and with it came a flood of questions that threatened to tear apart everything they thought they knew about the universe. The crew had been sent on a routine mission, a deep space salvage operation to investigate the wreckage of a long-dead battle. What they found wasn't just debris. It was a skeleton of history, one they were not supposed to uncover. Among the twisted hulls of destroyed ships, fragments of obliterated technology, and remnants of ancient weapons, they found something impossible. Dog tags, food rations, personal belongings, but most unsettling of all, a photograph. Faded, torn, but unmistakably human. Faces frozen in time, eyes filled with a strange sadness. Humans, a species that had never existed, at least not in the records of the galaxy. At first, the find was dismissed as a fluke. After all, humanity had been gone for centuries, or so they thought. But as the researchers delved deeper into the wreckage, the pieces began to fit together in ways that made no sense. These were no simple fables or stories passed down through the ages. This was real. These artifacts were not remnants of an ancient myth but physical, tangible objects that pointed to a race of beings who had once walked the galaxy, leaving only whispers and ruins behind. The ship's chief scientist, VAR, along with his brilliant assistant, VX, were among the first to examine the evidence. Their excitement quickly turned to disbelief. The artifacts, the materials, the photograph, everything contradicted everything they knew about the history of the galaxy. How could this be? If humans never existed, why was there hard evidence proving their existence? The tension aboard the Vigilant Horizon grew thick with every passing minute. VAR and VX were not the type to entertain wild theories. They were men of science, grounded in reality, driven by facts. Yet here they stood, facing a truth they could not deny. The artifacts they were holding weren't just old relics, they were real, undeniably real. And in each piece of the wreckage, each fragment of history, there was something more. A hidden story of humanity that was beginning to emerge from the shadows. But as the truth began to unfold, it quickly became clear that humanity's legacy was far from simple. Hidden deep within the wreckage was a sealed chamber, one that had been untouched by time, its entrance sealed for eons. When the researchers cracked open the chamber, they found a small life sign, a human child. Just a child. Alive. It was impossible. A being from a species that was supposed to have disappeared. The child was barely conscious, her eyes wide and confused, staring at them as if she knew they were the last people she would ever see. VR and VX were faced with a choice. The chamber's oxygen levels were dangerously low. 17 minutes of air remained, and in that time, the child's life would be snuffed out forever. Rescue her or let her die. But rescuing her meant more than just saving a life. It meant revealing a truth the galaxy was not ready to face. As they carefully moved to bring the child to safety, VAR and VX were not just grappling with the child's fragility. They were wrestling with something far more powerful, a moral and ethical dilemma that would haunt them forever. If they revealed the existence of this child, they would expose a secret that had been buried by every galactic race. The truth about humanity's past could shatter everything. The fragile piece the galaxy had so carefully constructed, the lies they had all been taught, the myths they had believed for centuries. The discovery of the child triggered a rush of questions. Who was she? How had she survived for so long? And why, after all this time, had she been left alone in a forgotten chamber, the last living remnant of humanity? But as VAR and VX worked to stabilize her, the true magnitude of their discovery began to emerge. The debris field they had uncovered wasn't just a battlefield. It was a graveyard, a vast testament to the human race, a race that had fought a war so brutal, so catastrophic, that the survivors had made a choice no one could have ever anticipated. They had erased themselves from existence. The truth of the human race's disappearance was more complicated than VAR and VX could ever imagine. The galaxy had been shaped by a war that humanity had fought against a brutal race of conquerors known as the Ignan. The Ignan, a species with advanced technology and ruthless tactics, had been hunting humanity across the stars, determined to wipe them out completely. The war had been fierce, but in the end, humanity's survival seemed impossible. The Ignan were too powerful, too determined. Humanity was on the brink of annihilation. But then, in a final, desperate bid to preserve what was left of their people, the humans did something no one expected. They erased themselves from the galaxy's memory. Every trace of their existence, every scrap of history was removed. It was a complete and total wipe. The records were falsified, the stories rewritten, and all memory of humanity was eradicated. They chose to vanish, to fade into the past rather than face total extinction. They would not allow themselves to be hunted. They would not allow their history to be erased in a way that left them vulnerable. As VAR and VEX uncovered more about the wreckage, they learned the chilling truth. The human warship they had discovered wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a sentinel, a hidden force, lying in wait for any sign that the galaxy might uncover the truth about humanity. And it wasn't just an ancient vessel. It was a weapon, a silent guardian that had been watching over the galaxy for centuries, ensuring that humanity's secret remained safe. With the warship's discovery came a terrifying revelation. Humanity had not disappeared. They had chosen to disappear. They had made a decision to remove themselves from the fabric of galactic history, hiding in the shadows, leaving only the faintest trace of their existence behind. But what would the galaxy do with this truth? What would happen if the galaxy learned that humanity had been here all along? As VR and VX processed the enormity of their discovery, the weight of the revelation settled heavily upon them. This was no longer just an academic anomaly or a historical curiosity. This was a galactic bombshell. The truth about humanity's existence, its deliberate erasure, and the desperate measures taken to hide it would send shockwaves through every known civilization. If word got out, it would change everything. Centuries of carefully curated history, entire generations raised on the belief that humanity was nothing more than a myth, would be called into question. It would unravel the delicate threads of galactic unity, throwing alliances into turmoil and shattering the fragile political balance that had held the universe together for so long. The Galactic Council had maintained the myth of humanity's extinction for centuries, ensuring that no trace of their existence remained in the official records. But why? What had been so dangerous about humanity that it warranted complete and utter erasure? Was it fear? A necessary deception to maintain peace? Or had the truth been buried because exposing it would force the galaxy to confront a past it was desperate to forget? The answers were buried beneath layers of lies and rewritten history, and now, for the first time in centuries, the truth was clawing its way back to the surface. But there was one more terrifying element to this discovery, one that sent a chill through both VAR and VEX. The Ignan, ruthless, relentless, and utterly consumed by their hatred of humanity, were still out there, and they were still searching. The Ignan had been humanity's greatest enemy, a species that thrived on conquest and annihilation, leaving only scorched ruins in their wake. The war between humans and the Ignan had been more than just a battle for survival. It had been an extinction event, a war waged with such intensity that it had pushed humanity to the brink. In their final days, when all seemed lost, humanity had made an unthinkable choice, to erase themselves from history rather than allow the Ignan to claim total victory. They had become ghosts, their existence reduced to nothing but whispers in the dark. Yet, despite the centuries that had passed, the Ignan had not forgotten. Their hatred had not waned. If anything, the absence of their greatest enemy had only fueled their obsession. Somewhere in the depths of the universe, they were still searching, still hunting, their thirst for vengeance as strong as it had been on the last day of the war. And now, the truth was at risk of being exposed. With the discovery of the child, everything was at stake. She was living proof that humanity had not vanished entirely. A single survivor, a fragile remnant of a species long thought erased. If the galaxy learned of her existence, it would send ripples of chaos through every corner of space. And if the Ignan learned of her, they would stop at nothing to finish what they had started. VR and VX knew the stakes were too high. This wasn't just about history or science. It was about the survival of an entire civilization, one that had hidden itself so well that even time had begun to forget. Revealing the truth would mean war. A war that the galaxy was not prepared for. A war that could reignite the flames of destruction that had once nearly consumed the stars. As the Vigilant Horizon drifted through the void, carrying with it the weight of a secret that could tear the universe apart, VR and VX faced the hardest decision of their lives. Did they keep the truth hidden, allowing the myth of humanity's extinction to persist? Or did they expose the past, knowing it could plunge the galaxy into chaos? And somewhere, beyond the reach of known space, in the cold, unfeeling void, the Ignan waited, their long-buried hatred still simmering, their ancient thirst for revenge burning as fiercely as ever. The galaxy had thought humanity was gone, but the truth was far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. Humans had never existed, or so the galaxy was told.